Welcome back, eSIM Studios podcast. Let me turn this down just a bit. Got some important stuff to talk about here. So I'm gonna review. I rarely do reviews, but wanted to review this certain podcast, the Joe Rogan podcast, where he had Mark Zuckerberg on as a host. Now, this was uploaded, I believe, yesterday on the Joe Rogan show. And again, I rarely do reviews of other channels, of other people's content. But this is an important one, and this incorporates technology. This incorporates Android. This incorporates Apple. And everybody, I believe, can relate to this. So we're going to review this. It's a few minutes. We'll discuss everything they discuss. And also have some important Samsung news here. We have new colors. We have S25, S25 Plus, and Galaxy S25 Ultra. Information, leaks, everything else that was remaining. We have got now the information. So we've got colors, we've got storage variants, and all that good stuff, with only one question left, but we will get to that after we do this review. So Mark Zuckerberg joined the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan podcast. I've been listening to, I think, Joe Rogan show for probably 5 years now, 5 6 years. Don't catch every single episode. I'll probably catch, out of every 10 he uploads, probably half of them, something like that. Every now and then, if there's somebody in there I don't recognize or haven't heard the name, I'll usually Google it, see who they are, and then I will watch it or not. But this one is a must watch. If you have not seen it, I'm going to put a link in the video description of the episode. So if you want to watch the full thing, you certainly can. They talk about technology. They spend the first hour. So it's 2 hours and 50 minutes long, and I'll break it down for you. The first hour, they basically spend talking about MMA, right? They talk about MMA because if you don't know, Mark Zuckerberg has been getting into MMA training. I don't think he fights. Let me plug this in. I don't think he fights professionally. I think he just does it for fun. Of course, he's like the 5th richest person in the world, over $100 billion, I believe, or somewhere around there, 80 to 100 billion, whatever it is. You can do what you want to. So I don't think he fights professionally, but he's picked it up in the last few years. I think it's good for workouts, stuff like that. But so they spend the first hour talking about MMA and all that stuff. Second hour, they talk about AI, where AI is headed, kind of what he's doing as far as AI. As you know, Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook back in 2004 when he was like 18 years old. So he's been running the company for essentially 20 years. Now he is the CEO, but he spends a lot of his time trying to focus on leading Meta. He created Meta. He created Facebook, and then the parent company Meta he formed, which now incorporates Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, amongst some other entities, right? But he has a board of directors for Meta and for each company that he owns to kind of run the daily operations, and then he spends a lot of his time focusing on the future, where they're headed. So he's focusing a lot of his time on AI and stuff like that, and they discuss that for the first hour or so. Now, the last 30 45 minutes, a very interesting topic comes up, and I basically crunched the last 45 minutes into a 7-minute video that we will watch. Now, it is edited because I don't want to get a copyright strike, so I sped up the video and put some features over it so it won't get picked up for copyright. But we are allowed to review stuff, but it is kind of touchy. But they discuss well, let's get into it. All right, how about that? So let me go ahead and load this up. So I have the right here. Let me turn this music down. and let's get into it.
Right back, folks. So one of the things that I want to talk about was I've been doing this transition from Apple to Android, and the difficulty of doing it, how locked you are in their ecosystem. Partly because Apple does a really good job of incorporating everything and making it very easy, your photos, your calendar, your this, your that.
So real quick, sorry to pause it, but Joe Rogan is switching from Apple to Android. Just that right there is a big headline. Now, he doesn't say why he is switching from iPhone to Android, but he does say in the last 30 minutes or so, well, he doesn't specifically say why, but he gives hints, and I think what I just paused it on is basically he's kind of fed up with Apple, with them basically forcing you to use AirPods, forcing you to use only Apple products on other Apple products when there are other companies that make better earbuds than the Apple AirPods. That's just a fact. And I think he's frustrated with not being able to use, I'm just throwing it out there, Galaxy Buds on devices or other devices that perform better, have better specs, but you're still forced to use Apple. So I think he's fed up with that. But that's good news. Hey, Joe Rogan, we welcome you to the Android community. I would like to welcome you to the family. If you have any questions whatsoever, give me a holler. Personally, I'm more than happy to help you to integrate anything you want when switching from iPhone to Android. Now, I'm going to give you a few suggestions. The OnePlus 13 cannot go wrong with this phone. Badass phone, Mr. Rogan. I think you would love this device. Pixel, pretty freaking good. If you take lots of pictures and videos, can't go wrong with a Pixel. And then, as you know, Samsung S25 series, the S25 Ultra, another very strong choice. Now, in my opinion, I think somebody like you would possibly like the Pixel. I think you would like any of the three: OnePlus 13, S25 Ultra, or Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. Shit, get all three of them, right? You can afford it, and then you can make your choice. But let's get back into it.
Your iMessage, but I don't like being attached to one company like that. It drives me crazy. And when I'm trying to get off, it's funny how many people they've done an insane job. Because I think there's some enormous percentage of kids today that only use iPhones. And when you try to switch over to Android, it's so much easier to switch from Android to Apple because so many people have Apple. When you switch from Apple to Android, you kind of have to redo your whole system. It's such a pain in the ass. But there's so much of what Apple does that I don't like. And one of the big ones is the way they do that Apple Store, where they charge people 30%. That seems so insane that they can get
Actually, it's not. Well, it is 30%. Actually, Apple charges anywhere from these developers that develop Apple apps to work, whether it's on iPad, Mac, or on iPhone, up to 41%. Now, we covered this. It's part of the reason why their Apple Vision Pro sucks, and they'll get into that. But one thing that they do not mention specifically is the lack of applications for the Apple Vision Pro. Very expensive, and only a handful of apps will work with it. Predominantly proprietary apps, meaning Apple apps. Well, I shouldn't say there's not any. There's a couple of third-party developer apps, but Apple is charging whatever the revenue that these developers, when you develop an app for iPhone, whatever it is, any Apple product, when you get revenue, so when somebody buys an app, let's just say it's $10. Apple charges up to 41% of your revenue, kind of like as a tax. So out of every $10, Apple's basically taking $4.10 or $4. Let's just round it off, and then you get to keep the $6. So Android is not much better, but it is less. I think Android's 25% up to 30%, but Apple's up to 41%. So they're taking $4 out of every $10 that these developers get in revenue, and that's why they've just kind of given their hands up, especially with this Apple Vision Pro. It takes so much time, so many resources to develop an application for such a specialty product that not that many people are going to buy. What's the point? So Apple shot themselves in the foot. Let's get back to it.
Get away with doing that. And I know
I have some opinions about this.
I know you do. That's why I brought it up.
No, I mean, look, the iPhone is obviously one of the most important inventions probably of all time. Steve Jobs came out with it in 2007. I started Facebook in 2004. So he was working on the iPhone while I was getting started with Facebook. So I basically one of the things that's been interesting in my 20 years of running the company is that I basically like the dominant platform out there, the smartphones. On the one hand, it's been great for us because we are able to build these tools that everyone can have in their pocket, and there's like 4 billion people who use the different apps that we use, and it's like I'm grateful that that platform exists. But we didn't play any role in basically building that those phones because I mean it was kind of getting worked on while I was still just trying to make the first website that I was making into a thing. And on the one hand, it's been great because now pretty much everyone in the world has a phone, and that's a kind of enables pretty amazing things. But on the other hand, like you're saying, they have used that platform to put in place a lot of rules that I think feel arbitrary and feel like they haven't really invented anything great in a while. It's like Steve Jobs invented the iPhone, and now they're just kind of sitting on it.
Did y'all hear that? Zuckerberg speaks the truth. Look, I have not been the biggest Zuckerberg fan, but I have not been the biggest hater, right? Like, I don't hate Zuckerberg. He hasn't really, look, I don't agree with everything he says or everything he does, but he's human, right? I don't agree with everything a few of my friends have done, but they're still my friends, right? Like he hasn't killed anybody, or he hasn't, maybe we have differing political views, which I don't ever get into, but because that's not important, right? I can look past your political views. I can look past your religion. I had a good friend that was Muslim. I don't care. I don't care who you pray to. I don't care what you think politically. So that stuff I can look past. It's a shame many people in this world, specifically today, can't look past that, but I can, right? That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is what kind of person you are. Now, I don't know him personally. Obviously, I don't know him behind the scenes, but seems like a decent guy. But he's right. Apple is stagnant. Apple has not created anything groundbreaking since the iPhone. They brought us an iPhone. They brought us a tablet. They brought us a computer. Now, what else are they doing? Been stuck on that for years.
"20 years later, and actually, I think year over year, I'm not even sure they're selling more iPhones at this point. I think like the sales might actually be declining. And part of it is that each generation doesn't actually get that much better, so people are just taking longer to upgrade than they would before. So the number of sales, I think, has generally been flat to declining.
That is a true statement. That is a very, very true statement. We looked, if you're a subscriber to this channel, we do reviews, app reviews, we do the tech news, we do everything on this channel. Phone comparisons, unboxings, just did this OnePlus 13, but he's right. Apple's market share has been declining because they put out the same phone every year for 6 years. Now, of course, there's Apple fanboys. Oh, it's not different. It's got the action button. It's not different. It's got the dedicated camera button on the side. Really? It's the same phone. Like, they're just Apple is just trying to spin you something, a slight variation of the same phone. They've been doing it for years. Now, their market share has declined. They've been able, yes, their product is very good and it's visually appealing, but at some point, how long can you put out basically the same product year after year and get away with it? Now, they've been doing it for 6 years. Sales have been, there's no question about it. They sell hundreds of millions of iPhones and products per year, but last year or two, it's plateaued. And this last year, their market share has declined. Who's taking a part of that market share? Google Pixel line, and that's a true fact, has actually gained market share just in the last year. I think OnePlus now is going to be gaining market share. This may be the phone of the year, and it just came out the first week of the year. More on this to come, the OnePlus 13. So, look, Apple's up against it. They have to do something, and we'll get into that in another video because they are going to release the iPhone Flip. They are going to be changing a few things. The iPhone 17 series is going to look different. So, they know, they see the writing on the wall. Once their market share slips, that means, we can't be stagnant. But if you're stagnant in the technology world, you will fall behind. You always have to be moving forward, because if you don't, somebody else will. And somebody else is in fact doing that. Multiple companies. So Apple's behind the 8 ball when it comes to innovation, and that's no secret. Even the tech billionaires of the world know this, right? It's no secret.
So how are they making more money as a company? Well, they do it by basically like squeezing people, and like you're saying, like having this 30% tax on developers, by getting you to buy more peripherals and things that plug into it. They build stuff like AirPods, which are cool, but they've just thoroughly hamstrung the ability for anyone else to build something that can connect to the iPhone in the same way. So I mean, there are a lot of other companies in the world that would be able to build like a very good earbud, but it just Apple has a specific protocol that they've built into the iPhone that allows AirPods to basically connect to it, and it's just much more seamless because they've enabled that, but they don't let anyone else use the protocol. If they did, there would probably be much better competitors to AirPods out there. And whenever you push on this, they get super touchy, and they basically wrap their defense of it in, well, if we let other companies plug into our thing, then that would violate people's privacy and security. It's like, no, just do a better job designing the protocol, right? And we have, we basically asked them for the Ray-Ban Meta glasses that we built, can we basically use the protocol they use for AirPod and some of these other things to just make it so we can as easily connect. So it's not like, a pain in the ass for people who want to use this. And I think one of the protocols they've used that they built, they basically didn't encrypt it, so it's like plain text. And they're like, well, we can't have you plug into it because it would be insecure. It's like, it's insecure because you didn't build any security into it, and then now you're using that as a justification for why only your product can connect in an easy way. It's like, the whole thing is kind of wild.
Wow, so there you have it. So Zuckerberg, actually, I'm very excited for the products that he's helping develop. These Meta lenses, the Meta Quest is just functionally a better product than the Apple Vision Pro as far as the AR and XR goes. And Samsung and Google are coming out. They've joined forces to come out with a Meta Quest competitor. And they are going to be ahead of the Apple Vision Pro. But it's interesting to hear that Zuckerberg reached out to Apple and wanted to tap into that proprietary ecosystem. He wanted to tap into the Apple ecosystem. So his Meta lenses, the Ray-Ban glasses, they're like Ray-Ban glasses that have like AR infused operating system into the lenses. And he wanted to tap into that proprietary Apple ecosystem. So he reached out to them asking, hey, can we have the source code, so we can have a fast connect. So when you connect your so when you connect your Meta Ray-Ban glasses to your iPhone or something, or to an iPad or to a MacBook, it would essentially pop up on your screen. Like if you have an iPhone and you pair AirPods to an iPhone, you know how as soon as you open the case of your AirPods, notification will pop up and say, hey, do you want to pair your AirPods, right? Well, that's the proprietary system. When you try to pair Galaxy Buds to an iPhone, you have to go the long route and pair them. And not all functions are available. Not all the functions are available on using Galaxy Buds on an iPhone as using Galaxy Buds on a Samsung phone, right? And Apple does that on purpose. They don't want you to use Galaxy Buds on an iPhone. They don't want you to use Meta Ray-Ban glasses on an iPhone. So I think he kind of knew that in the back of his mind when he reached out to Apple, that they would deny him access. But he's calling out their hypocrisy that, look, your proprietary ecosystem is basically old code. It's written in some old script that doesn't even have that good of security. He said it's written in just some plain text source code, nothing futuristic. It's probably 20-year-old source code that they're still using. So, he's calling them out for being hypocrites, and I'm glad he did that. Thank God somebody is finally calling out Apple besides myself.
And I'm pretty optimistic that just because they've been so off their game in terms of not really releasing many innovative things, that eventually, the good news about the tech industry is it's just super dynamic and things are constantly getting invented. And I think companies, if you just don't do a good job for like 10 years, eventually you're just going to get beat by someone. But I don't know. I mean, at some point I did this like back of the envelope calculation of like all the random rules that Apple puts out. If they didn't apply, like I think it's like, and this is just Meta, I think we'd like make twice as much profit or something. And not just us. I mean, it's like all these small companies that like probably can't even exist because of the taxes that they put in place. So yeah, I think it's a big issue. I wish that they would just kind of get back to building good things and not having their ability to compete be connected to just like advantaging their stuff. Because I'm pretty sure what they're going to do is like they're going to take something like this Ray-Ban Meta, category that we've kind of created with Ray-Ban and the company that built that. They're like the really great AI glasses, and I'm pretty sure Apple's just going to like try to build a version of that, but then just like advantage how it connects to the phone. And
well, they did that with their AR goggle thing, but that's not very successful.
no, that one they didn't actually connect into the rest of their ecosystem. But I mean, look, they shipped something for $3,500 that I think is worse than the thing that we shipped for $300 or $400. So I mean, that clearly was not going to work very well.
fact.
Now, I mean, look, they're a technology company. I think their second and third version will probably be better than their first version. But yeah, no, I think the Vision Pro is I think one of the bigger swings at doing a new thing that they tried in a while. And I don't want to give them too hard of a time on it because we do a lot of things where the first version isn't that good. You want to kind of judge the third version of it. But I mean, the V1 it definitely did not hit it out of the park.
I heard it's really good for watching movies.
Well, it's the whole thing is it's got a super sharp screen. So if you want to basically have an experience where you're not moving around much in VR, you just want to have the sharpest screen, then for that one use case, I think the Vision Pro is better than Quest, which is our mixed reality headset. But in order to get to that, they had to make all these other trade-offs. Right? In order to have a super high-resolution screen, they had to put in all this more compute in order to power the high-res screen, and then all that compute needed a bigger battery. So now the thing is really heavy. So now it's uncomfortable to wear, and then because of the screen that they chose, as you move your head, which you would if you're actually interacting, if you're playing games, like the kind of image blurs a bit, and that's kind of annoying. So it's actually worse for things where you're moving around in. But no, if you're going to sit, if you're like on a flight, and you want to have a $3,500 device that you use to watch videos, Vision Pro is better for that use case.
Wow. You don't. I like his honesty, right? With so many, especially in the tech world, the personalities are type A, personalities where their shit doesn't stink, quite honestly. And again, giving him credit, I know he's not liked across the internet, but I don't have any reason not to like him. So what I'm saying is it's a breath of fresh air. It's a breath of fresh air to hear him say that about Apple's product. I think he's being honest, and I'm saying that because many people would never ever dare say another competing product is better than their product in any aspect, in any way. They would try to bounce around the fact or talk gibberish, try to get around that question or not even bring that up. So he did mention, yes, Apple Vision Pro is not as good overall as the Meta Quest 3. However, it does have a super high resolution screen. So if you're just going to sit there on an airplane and watch a movie, it's probably better for that. It does have a higher resolution than the Meta Quest 3, but the Meta Quest 3 was not built for just sitting there and watching. The Meta Quest 3 in the Quest version is built for activities, right? Interacting with the software. And it absolutely kills the Vision Pro, Apple's Vision Pro. But it is nice to see him at least admit that. Being honest, right? That's all we can ask for these tech titans, so to speak, the leaders in the tech world. He's one of them. He is definitely one of them. So I'm glad to see him being honest.
They're really good at keeping you in their walled garden. That's what they're really good at.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing that they've done with iMessage, where they do this whole blue bubble, green bubble thing, and it basically, I mean, like for kids, it's just sort of like they embarrass you, right? They're like, if you don't have a blue bubble, you're not cool, and you're like the out crowd, and then they always wrap it in like security. It's like, oh well, we do this blue bubble because of security. Meanwhile, Google and others had this whole protocol to be able to do encryption.
That's a real fact. I did a story. It was a while ago. Maybe it was about 8 months ago. Maybe a year ago. And I did a story. We actually backed it up, or I backed it up with a bunch of statistics. Kids are, I think, 83. And I was kind of shocked because I thought it was more, quite frankly. But it was 83 or 84% of all high schoolers that were in this poll. I think they polled over, it was a few thousand high schoolers, and it was across the country. It wasn't just in LA or just in New York. It was across the country. I think they did maybe 10 high schools with a few thousand kids polled across the country. 84% of those polled, now we're talking what, from 15 to 18, had iPhones. And they said the number one reason why they chose iPhone was peer pressure. Basically, it's the cool thing to have. You, as Zuckerberg said, you get bullied or trolled, bully trolled, whatever. You get made fun of if you don't have an iPhone, right? It's not cool to have an Android. Boy, if I was in high school, I would be stomping all over these iPhone kids. with my OnePlus 13 and my Pixel 9 Pro XL and my S23 Ultra, I would. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. But that is a very, very true fact, and it's a sad fact, but it is true.
Encrypted text messages that finally I think Apple was forced to implement it.
RCS.
Yeah. I think it was the Chinese government that basically ended up forcing them to do it, or some other government.
But it's still not encrypted. Even when you're sending RCS text messages, I don't think it's encrypted.
I thought it was, but maybe
I think it's only encrypted Google to Google phones. I don't think it's encrypted iPhone to Google phones or Google phones to iPhones, because I think that was actually was it the FBI? Someone released that, telling people that if they're talking about sensitive things, they should use encrypted apps like WhatsApp. See if we can find that. It was something where they were saying that, contrary to popular belief, that RCS texting to iPhones.
GSMA aims to implement end-to-end encryption for RCS messaging.
We see it?
It's not a good answer. I'm trying to find it.
Oh, okay.
I don't have anything to show you yet. I was trying to read.
Yeah, so Google RCS to like
I don't know if this is
Android
correct.
phone to Android phone is encrypted with RCS. I think the issue comes with it going from say Google Google this Google RCS texting to iPhones, is it encrypted? RCS texting to iMessage, is it encrypted? I'm pretty sure it's not. I might be wrong. I don't think I am. I'm pretty sure I read that. And the problem was they won't let any other phone use the iMessage protocol. And they had a company that was doing it called Beeper, and they were doing it through some sort of workaround. Yeah, it's not encrypted. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so it's not. So you are getting the ability to send high resolution images, which is great because like
Beeper. Another fact that was discussed. Kind of surprised that Zuckerberg did not know this. Of course, he uses WhatsApp, right? I forgot that too. I was like, how could he not know that? But he owns WhatsApp, so he doesn't use iMessage. He doesn't use Google Messages. He uses WhatsApp for everything. And I think I have clipped in here, or maybe we'll see in a minute, where he kind of gets made fun of because whoever he messages has to be on WhatsApp. Of course, WhatsApp is encrypted, but that is a true thing. We've done multiple topics and stories on this where the messaging, Apple are got their noses so high up in the air. Yes, they incorporated RCS into iMessage, but it's almost a they're doing it, but they did it to make it look like they are incorporating. Yes, we're going to make it easier for because back in the day it would cause grainy photos sending a picture from an Android to an iPhone. Now you can send high resolution pictures and videos from Android to iPhone and vice versa, but still not encrypted. Apple knows this. Google is still fighting the battle trying to get Apple to accept it. Now, Apple's never going to accept that. They want to make it look like to the public, oh yes, we accept RCS now. We have RCS messaging. We incorporated it. You got to look one step further. Still not encrypted. So sending an iMessage from an iOS device to an iOS device, from iPhone to iPhone, that's an encrypted message. Sending a message from an Android device to another Android device on their Google Messages is encrypted. What's not encrypted is sending a text message or sending a message from an Android phone to an iPhone or an iPhone to an Android phone. Still not encrypted. And they mentioned Beeper. I'm glad to see Joe Rogan knows about Beeper. I've had a long history with Beeper, and actually that's what ultimately got me banned. My OG iCloud account got banned from Apple because I used Beeper. Beeper chose me as one of the beta users for Beeper, and Beeper basically encrypted those messages from Android to iPhone and vice versa, from an iPhone to Android. But the Android user had to use this third-party app called Beeper, and Beeper encrypted it. Now, what they did, and they not necessarily got in trouble, but Apple found out how they did it and blocked and basically shut down Beeper. Beeper was using a third party. So what you would do is you would send a message. You would on your Android phone using the Beeper app. That message would go to a warehouse somewhere and go to a Mac, a Mac PC, and then they would take that message and then send that message you reroute it to the person that you were sending it to. So it looked like it would be from, and you would get the green bubbles, or you would get the blue bubbles like you're sending a message from an iPhone to an iPhone, although you were sending that message from an Android using Beeper. Anyways, that service is now history, long gone. Apple shut them down, and they actually banned a bunch of people that were using that service like myself. So, anyways, let's get back.
Like my friend Brian, who uses an Android, he'd send me a video, and it'd be this tiny little broken down box because you had to break it down to the lowest resolution.
Yeah, no, I mean group chats when you have a bunch of people in iMessage and then one person has an Android are terrible. I mean that's we have a ton of people.
People get mad at you because you
I use WhatsApp.
So
I use WhatsApp.
You only use that.
I only communicate with a few people over SMS, but it's but basically, I mean, and I build a lot of the leading messaging services, so I've got to use ours. Most people I'm either WhatsApp or Instagram Direct or a Messenger, but yeah. So I think it's maybe people are less likely to get mad at me for asking them to use WhatsApp because we make WhatsApp. Yeah, so,
when Tucker Carlson was about to interview Vladimir Putin, one of the things that was really disturbing was they contacted him and said they read his signal messages and they knew that he was going to interview Vladimir Putin, and he was like, "What the fuck?"
Did?
The government,
the U.S.
Yes, U.S. government. I forget what it was. Was it the CIA or was it the FBI?
Wow.
I forget who it was. And he was like, "I didn't even know you could do that." Like,
well, there are multiple vulnerabilities and all this stuff. It's unclear. I doubt that what they did was they broke Signal because that encryption I think is pretty good, as is WhatsApp. I mean, it's basically Signal and WhatsApp use the same encryption. It's an open source and it's a
NSA.
NSA. Okay,
but someone could break into your phone and see everything that's on your phone. But the thing that encryption does that's really good is it makes it so that the company that's running the service doesn't see it. So if you're using WhatsApp, basically, when I text you on WhatsApp, there's no point at which the Meta servers see the contents of that message. Unless we took a photo of it or shared that back to Meta in some other way. That basically, it cuts out.
Okay, so basically to end that section of the podcast, what the hell? Sorry. While they were talking, ending that part of the podcast, talking about Signal and how Tucker Carlson, his Signal messages were intercepted by the CIA or FBI. Now, Signal is another encrypted security messaging application where it's encrypted from Signal user to Signal user. Whether you're using an iPhone or Android, if both, you have to message the other person via the Signal app. So both users have to use Signal, sort of like WhatsApp, but it is encrypted. Now, the only way that the government, the CIA or the FBI, could have read and or seen those messages is if Tucker Carlson if his phone was infected with the Pegasus malware, which is the zero-click malware, same malware that got Khashoggi, got his messages read by the Saudi government and killed. It's a Israeli-based, Mossad-based, which is their CIA version in Israel. They developed this spyware, Pegasus, where all they have to have is your phone number. This is like version 2.0, and I think they have 3.0 out right now because now we can detect if you have Pegasus, but I'm sure they've moved on to something else or a third version where you cannot detect it. But that's the only way they could have read his messages because it is encrypted, and I don't think anybody's been able to get in there. Now, the only way they would be able to see inside his messages is if Tucker Carlson's phone was injected with this Pegasus malware. Pegasus malware, you don't even have to click on anything to get it. All the person has to do is have your phone number. That's all they have to do is know your phone number, and then they can inject this malware into your device by just having your phone number. And it gives them the perpetrator full access to your device. Literally anything. They can turn on your camera, front or back, and they can look and see what you're doing. And your screen can be black, and yet they can still see out the front camera or the back camera. They can listen to the microphones on there. They can get into any apps. They can look into your pictures. They can look into your messaging. Even if you have like a Face ID lock on it, even if you have a password lock on it on a specific app, they can have full access to your phone. Security doesn't matter. They can even get, if you have a Bank of America app on your phone, they can still get in there. They can transfer money. They can do whatever they want. 100% full control of your phone. Now, a lot of them don't do that. It's mainly a spying thing where they want to stay in your phone as long as possible. They don't want the user to know something's going on. But that's the only way they could have gotten into his messages is if his phone was injected with the Pegasus malware. But interesting and very interesting podcast. I'm glad to see them discussing some important tech topics or aspects of the tech world. So I'm glad to see that. And very interesting. And again, I don't do many reviews, but when something like this pops up on the radar, I'll definitely do some of these and kind of review, dive a little deeper into their conversation. So if you got any questions, give me a holler. Other than that, I'll call it a day, but appreciate the time, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.